So I'm repairing things around my apartment all week, talking to my friend, bringing up all sort of funny and ridiculous articles, and he brings this to my attention. He said, you know, Team Vogue publishes pro-Marx, pro-communist propaganda?
Read all this in Vogue?
Our PR department is awesome.
It's a girl magazine. I hope you were at the dentist, Frylock.
It just comes to the house.
Of course it comes when you order it, you big fat lady.
To which I could not believe that, so I go ahead to check it, and despite being really oddly sexual towards teen girls, which is fucking weird, one writer did actually catch my eye, because there was one article where I am amazed that this is allowed, because it's one of those things where it sounds like it's calling for violence, but it's like right on the edge, where they're playing semantic games, where it's like, riots are justified, now go protest, wink.
Yeah, wink.
So I found this from Vogue's resident communist, saying the Black Lives Matter revolution can't be co-opted by police and lawmakers. My first question already, why is this in Teen Vogue? Go talk about celebrities' clothes and stickers and Vine and whatever the teens are into these days. So right here, the social unrest we're seeing in America is unlike any that young people have seen in our lifetime. These mass actions have spread from Minneapolis to every state in the country and across the world. Already not true? But you'll see that's a theme in this article, is she straight up lies and tries to blow up things as if they're bigger than they are. Because come on, this is mostly young kids, they don't know any better. You're in the realm of 13 to say 16, you're very likely to read these things and go, okay. So we continue. The huge numbers of people flooding in the streets in a mass show of rage feel like a fundamental shift. While Floyd's killing may have been the spark, the flame that keeps us moving ignited is the antipathy we all feel towards not only the police, but the whole system the police were designed to protect. Black people have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, economic recession, police killings and harassment, and incarceration. Okay, what? Did you see that jump there? Police were designed to protect. Black people disproportionately impacted by COVID and economic recession. What did that have to do with the police or Black Lives Matter? Okay, whatever. If anything, these riots are past due, so justifying the riots. Already a great start. You know, I'm really curious. I should probably check later. Complaining about mass incarceration. I wonder how she feels about Joe and the hoe. And here's where we get to the oh no territory. The past 3 months have revealed, for many, that the priorities of the US government are protecting capital and private property. Oh no, you mean our rights? Yeah, government, why are you going into the black neighborhoods and going to protect the black businesses and the black property owners? In what world do you have to live in to see people's getting lives destroyed and things getting burnt down? 30 people dead. One guy died because they burned his pawn shop down and found the body 2 months later. But as you see later, is there a solution in this article? Not really, no. I wonder how she'll feel if the rioters came to her house with pitchforks and torches, or apartment or whatever, and destroyed her stuff. I wonder who you'd call. This has been displayed during the coronavirus pandemic through the neglect of essential workers and the speed at which both Democrat and Republican governors rush to reopen the economy. Yeah, because people's lives are falling apart. See, I was blessed. I got lucky that I can work during the pandemic, but I know people who can't. I know small business owners who've lost their entire business forever, where it was salvageable at the end of the first lockdown and then let's do it again, and now it's gone forever. And here we go. It's even more obvious now through the show of military force against peaceful protesters. Don't worry, guys. All 30 so far, all 30 of the bodies, it was mostly peaceful killings. They were mostly peaceful fires. And then look at this, right next paragraph. It may be too soon to call this a revolution, but it has the makings to be one. That's exactly why those in power, including the police, are shook and are working tirelessly to destroy this wave of unrest before it becomes a tsunami they can't control. Yeah, I'm gonna jump ahead a couple sentences, because it's just a recap of things we already know. Protests began in Minneapolis and spread to cities like Los Angeles and Atlanta. Yes, because I was sandwiched between two of the riots over here. This immediate aftermath, mayors and their police chiefs across the country spoke against Floyd's death in support of emerging protest movement. Here we go. In Los Angeles, where I live, Police Chief Michael Moore told the Washington Post the lack of compassion, use of excessive force, was going beyond the scope of law and doesn't just tarnish our bed, it tears at the very fabric of race relations in this country. LA Mayor Eric Garcetti, whose father served as LA District Attorney for 2 terms, echoed Moore's words, tweeting, "George Floyd was killed before our eyes, and we have every reason to be angry and to cry out for justice and to say never again." Yeah, Garcetti demands justice by violating human rights of those he does not like. By the way, I was actually wrong on that last video. He did do it to a rich person. He actually enforced it, and he went for a wealthy dude. I was surprised. And also, fuck the cop that enforced that. You should lose your job and be in jail. Moving on. Now here's where you get into lies, because I was here firsthand. I don't want to hear it. But since then, the city of Los Angeles imposed a curfew, called the National Guard between May 29th and June 2nd. 2,700 people were arrested. Reports of excessive police force were reported nationwide by protesters and journalists covering the protests. They were riots, bitch. Alright? I went through Santa Monica Promenade. I am right by there. Not right by, but a decent drive away. I had to get stopped by the military and routed around because they had to route traffic around, where I saw all the destroyed buildings. That shit was not a protest. Firework mortars went off near my house. Politicians and police chiefs like Garcetti and Moore knew how to read the room. When they publicly stated that they supported the protests and opposed police brutality, they set the PR stage to appear as the good guys. I know this was written before, but remember, Garcetti, the good guy. I'm gonna stop the pandemic by shutting off your water if you don't do what I say. I am not gonna let that go. Supportive authorities in power who will allow for protests to take place as long as they stay peaceful, and how they set up for the next step. Push the myth of the peaceful protest. But you just said it wasn't a myth. That it was a peaceful protest, so now that's a myth. And then you say it's a revolution. And then if you look at your picture at the top of your thing, you show the Black Lives Matter sign behind all these fires. So which is it? You need to pick one. The bitch be lying. Here we go, look. The problem with the idea of a peaceful protest is who gets to decide what's seen as peaceful versus what is violent. Gee, I don't know, maybe we can look at the definition of peaceful and the definition of violent, and we can make an objective assessment based on those definitions. Like typical far-left tactics, we're gonna redefine words, so we can just change the goalposts whenever we want. A protest that is surrounded by hundreds of militarized police officers with guns, metal batons, and chemical weapons, it's low-grade tear gas, lady, chill. Where there is no property destruction or looting is not a peaceful protest. If peaceful means that only the police are allowed to display violence, that contradicts the very reason for these protests, the violence of the police. I've been carefully following this, and as you've seen in the riots, there are very few instances of police using excessive force, and most of the places I've seen it happen is in New York. Also would like to point out, look how all these problems keep appearing in blue cities. I'm sure you saw the one of the dude, MGL, point blank, fires a tear gas canister in the dude's chin. From my friends living in New York, NYPD is known for being not the brightest. But you've seen in Portland countless assaults on police, and if they do anything to fight back, that's the bait. And this is a really hard part for the police. They will chuck a brick at the cop's head, and if the cop retaliates in any way, they'll scream, "Help! Help! The big violent system is oppressing us!" And the media will, of course, just pick up on it because they defend the riots and they like the riots. Continuing, by creating the dichotomy between peaceful protesters and non-peaceful, e.g. riotous, we are giving the police justification to inflict violence. No, you're not. Because you have different ways of protest. You have actual protests. You have things like civil disobedience, which you will probably get arrested for, but hey, you do you. That's fine by me. As soon as you start attacking, breaking, or smashing things, then your ass should be in jail. Look at this. If property destruction happens, the media and state powers decide that this is an act of violence, then police use of force is justified. Does this person watch anything on the media? The media justifies and defends the riots constantly, nonstop. None of them will call it riot. Even Fox News doesn't say riot. Half the time they say protesters or demonstrators. And yes, property destruction is actual violence. No, because in that particular instance, he wasn't destroying property. He was being unruly, not cooperating, but it didn't justify the way they did things. But he wasn't smashing things, burning things, attacking people, attacking officers, debatably, but still. She's conflating two completely different acts. And then here's where we see this. This is just a blatant lie to your face. Watch this. When Donald Trump tweeted, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts," people were outraged that the President of the United States would threaten violence against protesters. Okay, did you see what she just did there? Trump says when the looting starts. Then she goes down to protesters. She's trying to confuse the reader by going looters and then protesters. Trump said when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Which what I believe he meant was if they want to go into the suburbs and start looting houses, you're gonna get shot. Maybe not in Los Angeles because they don't like us having guns. But she trying to portray the looters as protesters to make it sound like Trump is threatening people who are not doing anything wrong. But this is what we're seeing. Police have shot protesters and looters. See, look at that. She puts looters in quotes. She keeps changing things. We have seen them looting. We have countless videos of people looting and stealing. I literally saw it. I saw the aftermath of the looting and stealing. I saw the Grove. I saw the Santa Monica Promenade. That's not what you do when you protest. There we go. You can't say you're against police violence and killings, but then agree that the protesters deserve to be shot, tear gassed, or beaten by police for attending demonstrations, breaking curfew, or even committing illegal acts. Okay. So you see how she's trying to be vague here? So what do you mean by committing legal acts? Do you mean whipping your dick out in the street? Or do you mean assaulting a police officer with a brick? There's a lot of gray area there. As long as the police exist, there is no such thing as a peaceful protest. Those who continue to push that narrative are only aiding the powers that be. In reality, it takes a lot of violence to enforce peace. Well, no, the threat of violence is what enforces peace. This concept called peace through strength. Because if someone goes around looting and stealing and robbing and beating down on the little guy, the use of violence is required to get them to stop. That is why, if you attack somebody, the attacker forfeits their right to life because the right to self-preservation supersedes that. This is why if people have more guns, if more law-abiding citizens owned guns, you are not gonna see as many muggings or robberies because if everyone's packing, people aren't gonna want to try that shit because they don't know who has the gun and where they are. There is no utopia with world peace, and this is my problem with a lot of communists and revolutionaries like this. They don't understand human nature. We are fallen beings. We are not inherently good, and you can't train people to magically be good all of a sudden. You can't take bad people and magically make them good. There will always be evil people, and you need someone to deal with those evil people. This is why communism doesn't work. It's against human nature. Not all humans are the same. We don't all want or need the same things. This is why it only works on small scales within communes, where a group of people agree upon what they need and want and work together. When you expand that to an entire country, it doesn't work. Anyway, the media played a crucial role in pushing narratives about outside agitators, from MSNBC host Joy Reid to progressive representative AOC. Okay, let me just stop you right there. There were outside agitators. That was a fact. They were catching people from out of state in Minneapolis. A ton of Antifa people, because they used the protesters as cover. These mysterious agitators were all of a sudden showing up everywhere that confrontational protests occurred. Yeah, they were coming into the black neighborhoods from out of state and destroying them. You've seen the pictures and videos of bricks randomly appearing places. Police are constantly arresting people out of state. Or I'm sorry, do you just think we're all a bunch of dumb monkeys that destroy our own neighborhoods? We also started seeing videos of black organizers yelling at non-black people who are apparently committing vandalism. But this is erases the black and brown youth that were taking these actions in their communities. I love it! I love it! You're going, black people going, hey, get the fuck out of our community. Stop destroying our houses. Stop destroying our businesses. Get out. And this lady goes, but think of the young black men there who are doing it to their own communities. Oh yeah, that makes it great. Man, you're dumb. Dumb.
I'm dumb.
This is part of a long tradition erasing the black radical from the political discourse. From my own experience on the streets of Los Angeles. Oh yeah, I'm sure that's where you're from. It was black and brown youth looting a system that has looted them for countless generations. No, I live there. Just stop. Stop. I've been here for 22 years. Stop lying. Santa Monica Promenade did not loot you. The Grove did not loot you. You want excuses for niggas to go around and destroy and loot things. The outside agitator narrative was a convenient way to avoid acknowledging the true rage of the youth who feel so betrayed by this society. The media succeeded in shifting public opinion away from these harsh displays of rebellion towards displays of resistance that were easier to consume. There you go. You just said the media was against you. Now you're saying the media is helping you. Which is it? Although you were right on this one. The media is trying to make it easy to consume because they're trying to justify it. In a power vacuum, everything is up for grabs. This past weekend, we saw a major shift in the character of street demonstrations. We're back to that. Across the country, burning up cop cars, broken windows, and ACAB graffitied the walls seem distant now. The protests that once felt like they could topple the police state appear to have fallen to one of the United States' oldest tactics, counterinsurgency. Well, how can they topple the police state if these were peaceful protests? I don't think they Gandhi'd that shit. Twitter feeds have been filled with photos of protesters and cops kneeling and dancing together and hugging, all in the name of Black Lives Matter. Corporate websites swapped out their disclaimer about COVID for a message about solidarity with the Black Lives Movement. Yeah, and it's actually pissing people off because a lot of people don't like the riots. They know the media is lying. They know the DNC is lying. They know what the organization Black Lives Matter is doing. A recent commitment by the city of Minneapolis to disband its police department has been heralded as a win for abolitionists. Yet, as this writing, this pledge is a little more than that. The majority white conglomerate that has already worked to water down the concept of police abolition by assuring their white audience that it doesn't mean the abolition of law enforcement. See, so if you don't want the complete removal of police entirely, that's clearly just because you're white. I think you need to check your shit again. But the rage that put abolition on the national stage has been arrested and is now being overshadowed by the interests profiting off the unrest. This turn is also far more palatable to white people who have shown up in droves to march nationwide. They were there from the beginning. They're the ones who were the first people. BLM is mostly white people now. And they'll yell at people like me and my friends for saying, screw your movement, you don't speak for us, and you all are just doing tons of damage to the black community. The majority of black people I know hate BLM, and the white progressives at the college I was going to adored them. They even had a seminar where they tried to push White Fragility onto me, a book written by an overt white supremacist who says she is. He straight up says she's a racist in the book. That's also a story for another day. In the second wave of actions, we saw Blackout Tuesday, where people posted a black square on Instagram as a sign of solidarity. Yes, peak slacktivism. That's a word I haven't heard in a while. It should come back. Empty your pocketbooks, which has led to celebrities and corporations donating to non-profit in the name of Black Lives Matter. Former President Obama, we need to vote for change, and policy derivatives like Campaign 08 Can't Wait Plan, which suggests we can reduce police violence through minor reforms. Factually true. But then he says none of these efforts can resolve epidemic police violence, and here we go. This is what they're gonna do. Watch this. The goal cannot be for less police violence. We must demand no more police violence, which will require the complete abolition of the police. There we go. Sort of like we can abolish crime if we just let out all the prisoners and made no laws. You can't eradicate an evil like this. This is a utopianist worldview. You can minimize it, which is what we want to do, through good policy and good training. Which, look, this is just such a lack of any sort of insight on how the world works. Often in social movements, the goalposts get moved to create fake victories. How ironic coming from a leftist. But we have done this for far too long. To any legislature or organizations that claim to have a cure for police violence, I ask, what was your policy before? In places where police reform efforts have been implemented, police abuse remains. Oh shit, it's like the war on poverty. You can't eradicate it. It's a line that moves. Here we go. I'm going to jump ahead one paragraph. As long as police exist, there will always be repression. This is why we must accept nothing less than abolition of law enforcement. Okay. You know what will happen in the black community, Miss I'm from Los Angeles? Your community will become lawless, which will in turn for the gangs to come take the place of the police. Because it ain't gonna be these lefties. They might look tough in Portland, but yo, when real niggas come down, I don't think they're gonna be much of a threat. The gangs will take over as police. Don't believe me? Look at the origin of the Bloods and the Crips in the 1960s. We've seen what happens when the police are not there. We just had the Chaz. But she knows this, and she's trying to manipulate young teenagers who are so caught up in school and other things they got going on in their lives, they're not going to understand the nuance of these discussions. I wouldn't when I was 15. I wouldn't understand this fully. This is why you see all this indoctrination's going on at schools. Alright, in this place, we must invest in the very people our society has claimed to value during the pandemic. Medical workers, caregivers, grocery delivery people, and others who provide life and joy for our communities. Okay, well, explain to me how my job is going to stop a bunch of angry niggas with guns. Please explain that one to me. Beyond that, we also need mass investment in housing, education, and healthcare. They're trying to kill this movement. We can't let them stay in the streets. And see, do you see how this is it comes really close to calling for violence, but she keeps kind of changed the wording a little bit. And this is a publication. It is not a platform, so they can be held liable. I don't know if this crosses the line. If someone with a legal background knows, I would really like to know if this does. But we know these people are full of shit. You've seen all the protests that say abolish the police, and then something bad happens, and they go call the police. Anyway, I'm going to split this up into 2 parts, because this is going to be long. And in the next part, we're going to go over her other article, where she goes full-blown super commie on us. Okay, quick update. When you pair this article with a tweet that I saw when I was trying to just find out a little more about this person, she has a tweet saying, millionaires need to go too. We're coming for everyone wealthy. When you pair that with this article, you're getting really close. Well, I guess you should start with your own company, whoever owns Teen Vogue. Let's get them out of there first.